Greetings, spiritual pilgrims. Welcome to Remnant Church's Midweek Refuel, a spiritual boost to get you to Sunday morning. We explore the ancient paths of wisdom in order to live better modern lives. Our primary purpose is to make Christ-like disciples at our local services and through streaming media. If you would like to support our cause, donations can be given at our website, www.remnantpeopleoftheway.com, and a direct link will be given in the comments section. Today's lesson comes from Book 9, Chapter 4, The Pilgrim's Regress. In this chapter, our hero John comes face to face with Mother Kirk. And Mother Kirk is, of course, the church, or the stand-in for the bride of Jesus Christ. She represents the church. The Catholic Church, or not the Catholic Church by name, but the Catholic Church meaning the universal church. I find it interesting that Lewis portrays her as an elderly woman in somewhat shabby clothing because Scripture depicts her a little bit differently. But you have to realize where it is he is viewing her from at this point, for we are on the regress, not the progress. This must be the aspect of her that is seen by the world, because in the Scriptures, the bride of Jesus Christ is quite a beautiful lady. But we are on the Pilgrim's Regress and not on the Pilgrim's Progress. So we must look at the church through the eyes of someone who has been conditioned by the wraiths which haunt John's memory. And you'll understand more about what that means as we get into the chapter. You see, each of us has been given either a good script program or a bad script with which to run our lives. Or we have, you have to think of it as a code or computer code. You can have code that says print out 2 plus 2. And if you do that, and my programming skills aren't what they once were, but if I think back to my old basic days, if you say print 2 plus 2, you will get 4. But a slight change in that code changes everything, doesn't it? You could have code that says print, quote, 2 plus 2 equals 5, unquote. And it will do what you asked it to do. It will do what you asked it to do without error, and it will ask you to do, and it will do what you asked it to do perfectly. Both programs are perfect. The programs are good. It's kind of like looking at socialism on paper. The program looks great on paper, but run it, see what you get. You will not be able to convince the programmer that they are wrong. Both have done what they are meant to do, but only one of them is actually of any value. The one without the quotes sends instructions to the processing centers of the computer that do math, and those math centers chug out, 2 plus 2, it's a hard one, let's get it, it's 4. But the other one just says to print what was entered no matter what it is. You put it in quotes, so you want it exactly. Both programs are right. Both programs are good. Neither program will spit out an error to you. They are both syntactically right. They are both logically right as far as the program is concerned, even though we know whether or not even if we don't know what we're receiving makes any sense. In theology, this is referred to as the difference between isness and oughtness. Just because the government says that a word means something else does not mean that the word means that. And we have to get back to reality and chuck out PC language with everything. I will not be using it anymore, any of it, from the earliest dawn of it. And I was alive during the entire time it was being forced down our throats, and I won't be using it anymore. Their coding may be great, but their output stinks. Think of it like this. Everyone throughout all of history has known what marriage and 2 plus 2 equals. All through history, at least since the Mesopotamians. But our government decided that they knew best and decided that they would write code that just said, quote, marriage equals whatever, unquote, and print that out. And that's what they did. Well, for all those sitting around the computer screen that they had just printed that out, they had to make a decision, didn't they? They're looking at the computer screen, and the computer screen prints out marriage equals whatever. Well, the computer did it. The program ran fine. Everything must be okay, right? Either the government defines words and we just have to eat it, or history and common sense define words and we hold our ground in firm reality. Really, it all depends on what you want. And as long as everyone plays by the rules that 2 plus 2 equals 5, then no problems will initially arise. But what happens when you go somewhere that has not been fed bad code? What happens when you encounter a people or a race or a neighbor that has not bought into the 2 plus 2 equals 5? Maybe they know what happened with the coding. Well, they are going to look at you like you are an idiot when you come and tell them that 2 plus 2 equals 5. You can tell them the government said it. You can tell them the monitor said it. You can tell them the computer said it. You can tell them the computer program ran perfectly and it said it. But anybody with any sense is going to look at you and go, you are wrong, even though you know your program is right. And your program is right. I hope you're sticking with me. They're going to look at you like a moron. Very much like the faces of Eastern Muslims looked at Americans when we went over there and tried to convince them that the filth of Mapplethorpe was actually art. They knew that it wasn't art, but our colleges had produced a few generations of people who accepted that 2 plus 2 equals 5 and that Mapplethorpe was art at the door of their dormitories, or they weren't allowed in, and they were shamed if they thought otherwise or spoke otherwise. It doesn't matter if they were right or not, as long as the leading classes, the professors, and the woke nonsense generators could shame them into saying 2 plus 2 equals 5. And if they couldn't shame them into 2 plus 2 equals 5, then I'm sure they would introduce them to Room 101 from our 1984 knowledge. And so we had a whole country running on bad math, a whole country running on insanity. And we are experiencing the shakedown of that in our lives, and it's not comfortable. Well, bad math never holds. It never will hold. Why is the world in turmoil? Simply this. Some people have it in their minds that 2 plus 2 equals 5, no matter what the sanity says. Some people, though, have it in their minds that 2 plus 2 equals 4, no matter what the computer program says, because the program might be perfect, but it might be programmed for different means than truth. It might be programmed by the government and NATO, or some other person. But John comes face to face with the church. And the church's job is to always, no matter what, be the salt and the light that brings God's reality into focus no matter the cost. Salt displays the womb, or light displays the womb, and salt makes you very aware you have one. Even if it means, and it heals at the same time. Even if it means a cross of shame. And John is now being asked to separate himself from all the bad code he has ever been given. And everything that he has been given is bad code. For the fruit of his country has been infected, every last bit of it. That's why he needs the church who remembers a time before. I actually heard someone tell me that they were listening to some politician, and I don't want to name who it was on this account, but said that one of the biggest problems to the progressive world order was Christians and their clinging to ancient ways. Well, of course we cling to ancient ways, because if you are a mathematician, you do not throw out the math of the past and think you're going to go it alone. No, you work off of those shoulders. We do not build buildings. I do not go out and build a skyscraper without first having played with Lincoln logs. And so the idea that I'm going to build a country, a community, and a world system on my brand new ethics and morals is ignorance beyond measure, and should be called anything but progressive. But here we are. And John is now being asked to separate himself from all the bad code he has ever been given in an act of self-denial. And it's an act of self-denial that is so intense that it is referred to as death. And death is the only proper word that can describe it and capture what is happening, because the edifice that has been built on 2 plus 2 equals 5 must fall, and the entire edifice has been built on 2 plus 2 equals 5. And the church helps people make that transition and gives them a community of people who have hopefully made that transition in the past. I think we have some pastors that are behind pulpits that haven't made that transition, so how can they speak of it? If you are in a church that does not teach death and rebirth, then run like hell from them. They are still trying to sell you five. The wraiths that John encounters try with all their might to get John to draw back from the truth. They do not like the truth because the truth will make their edifices fall in favor of something else. What else? They fear. They fear with everything in them. They do not want to even experience what else. They do not want him to find the truth. And if you wonder how anyone would not want the truth, then I ask you to look around at the world around us and the shape that it is in. We don't want the truth of our own skin, so we tattoo it. We don't want the truth of our own hair, so we color it blue or green. We don't want the truth of our own birth gender, so we chemically castrate our children and call it loving. We had a president that tried his best to speak the truth to us, and half of the country called him a big old meanie for doing so. You see, if you have done all your calculations using 2 + 2 = 5, and someone comes in and dares tell you that it equals 4, then you either have to upend your entire life and get it straight, your bank account, your mortgage, how many tires you buy for your car, everything that is related to 2 + 2 = 5 must be tossed out and recalculated with the new answer and the right answer. Or kill the person, or you must kill the person doing the correct math, dead as a doornail, before anyone else hears them screaming. Because if word gets out that 2 + 2 does not equal 5, then the whole system comes crashing down. That is what we are experiencing at a world level right now. The progressives likes to call it the deconstruction. Congratulations, it is deconstructed. What will be reconstructed in the future, I hope to have a say in that, and I hope to have a say in that because I bow to Jesus Christ, the King, and I want Jesus Christ to have the final say over all of it. Well, that is your life on sin. The truth will make it all come crashing down, every last bit of it. What you think of yourself, what you think of others, how you get offended, what offends and what does not offend you. And when you see that sin has presented you with a false reality, the only salvation is to let the edifice of that false creation die, and the edifice of your false ego that was built on it die. But here's the good news. If you do, you will live and have life more abundantly. What prosper a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Let's keep this short. I have to make this book last until the studio is ready to go, so we're going to do just one chapter today, but it is a rich chapter, and I hope you see where my thoughts came from as we read through it. It is from, I believe, Book 9, Chapter 4. Yes, and it has a picture with it today. If you can see that, that's Mother Kirk standing with her scepter. And that's Virtue over there, as Lewis says, mother naked in the picture. And so let us begin. On the floor of Peccatum Ade, original sin, stood Mother Kirk, crowned and sceptered in the midst of the bright moonlit circle left by the silent people. All their faces were turned towards her, and she was looking eastward to where John slowly descended the cliff. Not far from her sat Virtue, mother naked. They were both on the margin of a large pool which lay in a semicircle against the western cliff. On the far side of the water, that cliff rose sheer to the edge of the canyon. There was deep silence for about half an hour. At last, the small, drooping figure of a man detached itself from the shadow of the crags and advanced towards them through the open moonlight. It was John. "I've come to give myself up," he said. "It's well," said Mother Kirk. "You've come a long way round to reach this place, whither I would have carried you in a few moments. But it is very well." "What must I do?" said John. "You must take off your rags," said she, "as your friend has done already, and then you must dive into this water." "Alas," said he, "I've never learned to dive." "There's nothing to learn," said she. "The art of diving is not to do anything new, but simply to cease doing something. You have only to let yourself go." "It is only necessary," said Virtue with a smile, "to abandon all efforts at self-preservation." "I think," said John, "that if it is all one, I'd rather jump." "It is not all one," said Mother Kirk. "If you jump, you will be trying to save yourself, and you may be hurt. As well, you would not go deep enough. You must dive so that you can go right down to the bottom of the pool, for you are not to come up again on this side. There is a tunnel in the cliff far beneath the surface of the water, and it is through that you must pass so that you can come up on the far side." "I see," thought John to himself, "that they have brought me here to kill me." But he began, nevertheless, to take off his clothes. They were little lost to him, for they hung in shreds plastered with blood and with the grime of every shire from Puritania to the canyon. But they were so stuck to him that they came away with pain, and a little skin came with them. When he was naked, Mother Kirk bade him come to the edge of the pool where Virtue was already standing. It was a long way down to the water, and the reflected moon seemed to look up at him from the depth of a mine. He had had some thought of throwing himself in with a run the very instant he reached the edge, before he had had time to be afraid. And the making of that resolution had seemed to be itself the bitterness of death, so that he half believed the worst must be over, and that he would find himself in the water before he knew. But lo, he was still standing on the edge, still on this side. Then a stranger thing came to pass. From the great concourse of spectators, shadowy people came stealing out to his side, touching his arm and whispering to him, and every one of them appeared to be the wraith of some old acquaintance. First came the wraith of old enlightenment and said, "There's still time. Get away and come back to me, and all this will vanish like a nightmare." Then came the wraith of media halfways and said, "Can you really risk losing me forever? I know you do not desire me at this moment, but forever. Think. Don't burn your boats." And the wraith of old halfways said, "After all, has this anything to do with the island as you used to imagine it? Come back and hear my songs instead. You know them." The wraith of young halfways said, "Aren't you ashamed? Be a man. Move with the times, and don't throw your life away for an old wives' tale." The wraith of Sigmund said, "You know what this is, I suppose. Religious melancholia. Stop while there is time. If you dive into insanity." The wraith of Sensible said, "Safety first. A touch of rational piety adds something to life, but this salvationist business, well, who knows where it will end? Never accept unlimited liabilities." The wraith of Humanist said, "Mere atavism. You are diving to escape your real duties. All this emotionalism after the first plunge is so much easier than virtue in the classical sense." The wraith of Broad said, "My dear boy, you are losing your head. These sudden conversions and violent struggles don't achieve anything. We have had to discard so much that our ancestors thought necessary. It is all far easier, far more gracious and beautiful than they supposed." But at that moment the voice of Virtue broke in. "Come on, John," he said. "The longer we look at it, the less we shall like it." And with that he took a header into the pool, and they saw him no more. And how John managed it, or what he felt, I did not know. But he also rubbed his hands, shut his eyes, despaired, and let himself go. It was not a good dive, but at least he reached the water head first. 2 + 2 = 4. Always and forever. There's another calculation. The wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Don't take my word for it. Do the math yourself. Jesus is King. Hail to the King. Godspeed.